عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي رب يسر ولا تعسر رب تمم بالخير سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم نويت التعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير ونفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله مرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. We are looking at page 36 of أيها الولد. Rationale. My dear son, after this day, question me not except by the language of reason. And therefore, this is a clarification again that it is not wrong to ask questions. But what is most important and how is this distinct from what is propagated or pursued by supposed modern day educators today is that it is asking you to ask me not except by the language of reason. Reason means that you have to reason out what you have to ask first. Means that it is not an impulsive exercise. What happens today in schools, in modern education system, is that you're encouraged to ask. Firstly, because it's participation points. So you are gauged by how much you ask. Asking is equal to participation. Already in such a concept, you are encouraging people to question for the sake of participation. The sincerity and the genuinity of the question is being put into question here. But the second thing you need to bear in mind here is that when you are asking, it should not be an impulsive process. All right, it's not because I want to ask, I just ask. No, he says by the language of reason. Imam Ghazali's language of reason means what? Whatever information that comes to you, you are supposed to first absorb it, appreciate it first, and then contemplate upon it before you ask. Because asking is not the problem here. Because Allah says in the Quran, "Fas'alu ahla dzikri in kuntum la ta'lamun." Ask the learned, all right, if you do not know. So it means that if you are not sure, you can ask. But what is the caveat there? In the sense that you don't just ask for the sake of asking, that's one, and do not ask without contemplating or rationalizing within yourself. So you have to actually rationalize. So when you have an information, think about it, research upon it, and then you ask. Because when you ask under that circumstances, all right, the answer that comes to you will affirm the knowledge you have built on. Remember, it is important to ask based on a on a knowledge premise. Do not ask from the premise of ignorance or the lack thereof of wanting to build on your knowledge. So you should actually research first, appreciate first, build on the understanding that you got from the initial content that your teacher taught you. So your teacher tells you something, okay, you have partial understanding of it, or you're not sure about it. Okay, take note of it, and then do your research, do your contemplation, do your thinking, do your work, do your homework. All right, and then you actually approach the teacher and ask your question. Now, someone who asks from the premise of contemplation will be different from someone who asks from the premise of arrogance, from premise of ignorance, from premise of non-contemplation. Okay. As he, the exalted, says, and had they waited patiently until you came forth to them, you will have been better for them. All right, so it would have been better for you to be more patient. Okay, except the advice of Al-Khidr alayhi salam when he said, ask me no questions about anything until I myself speak to you concerning it. So this in the Surah Kahf, right? Surah Al-Kahf, you recite on Friday. It's a story about Khidr and Musa. And inside, Musa has so much of burning questions, so many burning questions that he wants to ask. But Khidr teaches him the ethic of it is to think about it, to consider it. All right. So it's very important for us as students to be inquisitive. That's good. All right. But for you to get to the inquisitive part, you have to actually be someone who is able to appreciate first, to first ensure that you can absorb and then you appreciate. So the stages are such that you have to first absorb. So when the teacher teaches, all right, I already say that it is important, right? Some students cannot make this differentiation. This goes for any medium of education you attend. When the teacher teaches, all right, I already said the best approach is to actually listen first, understand, and then write. That is different from you writing as you listen, because sometimes that makes you susceptible to transcribing. You are just writing what the teacher says. So someone who writes as the teacher says is someone that someone can do that with the justification that after the lesson, you're going to relook at what is being said, and then you're going to try to make sense of it. If not, so there are two ways. One, when the teacher speaks, you understand, you listen, and then you understand, and then you write. When someone does that, you have a benefit of three things. You have the benefit of listening, you have the benefit of trying to understand, and you have the benefit of writing it. All right. And you also start to also develop your strength of memory. Okay. The second group is those who write as they hear. Now, someone who does that, they are not actually processing. They're only processing their hearing aspect. You're just listening, writing, writing. For them to get as good a stage as the previous student is for them after the lesson, for them to contemplate on the content. After the lesson, you have to look. How many of us actually write down notes and after that reflect on the notes? Sometimes it's just a process. Oh, because I'm sitting for a class, so I just need to write down. Sometimes we write down. I'm guilty of that. Sometimes we write down because we want to stay awake. It's so boring. Okay, take out a pen and write. Everything you write and write and write and write. You don't know what's happening. You just want to stay awake. All right. In the occasionally, you have a doodle, a flower, mini dinosaur here and there. All right. But then the best one is for you to listen, absorb. All right. And then you write. Okay. Listen, absorb, and then you write. So that's the process. So first you listen. All right. Second, you absorb. All right. And then third is for you to contemplate. Right? Listen, absorb, and then you write. What's there to contemplate? I thought you contemplated before you write. No. Sometimes your contemplation, given the space of time during the lesson, is short. Because your teacher is making 1 point to another, move on. 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. Then your mind is still at point number 1. All right. So you have to be quick. So there is still partial contemplation happening, partial thinking happening, partial absorption. So you still need to, after the lesson, all right, to start to what? To start thinking about it. All right. So start thinking about this thing. All right. Start thinking, reflecting. The more you reflect, the more you have questions. Which is why our teacher, Sheikh Ahmad Saleh Azhari, he's always very particular and at times frustrated when he asks if they have any questions and no one asks a question. Because if you don't have any questions to ask, it means that you have not been contemplating on the lesson. You've not been thinking through the process. So questioning is valid only by virtue of contemplation. So therefore, a good learning environment is one that allows you to contemplate. You have to think about it. So a good learner is someone who don't just listen and just be present. Some people, they are there, they are listening, they are there, they are present. But then they are not there. In the sense that they are there, but their mind is not working. They are just in awe of the teacher. I'll take barakah, barakah, barakah. The barakah must work two ways. The eye looking at the teacher has the barakah. The ears have the barakah of taking the knowledge. The mind has the barakah of contemplating. The heart has the barakah of actually putting everything together. Even though you're just sitting there for barakah, just looking at the person. If you are just going to come and look at the person for that barakah, then you have many other opportunities to do so. But you are talking about barakah of knowledge. It's just looking, listening, absorbing, contemplating, writing. All this is barakah of knowledge. Make sure you have a full package. Don't come for just looking. That's why some people, right? Some people, they come for a scholars gathering. And then right after the gathering, they rush forward to shake the sheikh's hand. Some people, they are smart enough. They don't do that. Why? I've taken 5 barakahs. If you have been there to merely listen and then you rush forward to shake hands, you have only 2 barakahs. But I have 5. And my barakah will last longer than you. If your purpose is just to shake his hands, your barakah will last only until a period of time. It will not last longer than someone who takes the teacher's knowledge, absorbs it, acts upon it, and becomes his lifelong friend throughout. That knowledge becomes something that is within himself. It becomes part and parcel of you. It becomes your flesh and blood. Your teacher becomes part of you. Your scholar becomes part of you. But if you are just someone who's there to be there for that moment, the moment goes, the barakah goes as well. So make sure that you have the right intention when you sit in the garden of knowledge, in the premise of knowledge before a teacher. You want to get as much benefit from that, so you have to absorb. All right. So you absorb, you appreciate, and then you start to formulate questions. Okay. And then fourthly, all right. All right, then you question. So questioning is the fourth one. That's the adab. All right. Fourth is when you start to ask the question. All right, when you ask the question, next time you see, then you ask that question. After you have asked that question, there's still a follow-up process. What's the follow-up process? Is to act upon the knowledge and act upon it consistently. Remember, knowledge is to be acted upon. Knowledge is not to remain passive. Knowledge is soulless until act is given to it. It's like a play. You have the wordings of a script on your play. All right, whether the words of Shakespeare or whatsoever. All right, the words are on your play. How does it come to life? When it is acted upon. When actors come in and they deliver a line. All right, then it comes to life. So what gives life to knowledge is the action. All right, so it's important for us to know that. And do not be in a hurry to reach the time when it shall be disclosed to you. Do not be in a hurry. So you don't have to be impulsive to ask. Absorb first. And then think about the possible questions. Think about it, and then you ask. All right, so do not be in a hurry. Give some credit to yourself. Right, listen. Right, there are some people who come, they're extremes in a garden, in a learning environment. There are those people who come and they're just passive. The worst kind of students are passive students. They just come there and they just sit in the corner there, astaghfirullah, mashallah, and they just sit like that. There is no attempt to absorb, to consume nothing. They bring no pen, nothing. Just sit there for the barakah. So they sit there all the way for the next 2 hours. Will they get rewards? Yes. Will they get rewards from Allah? Yes. Will their sins be removed from them? Yes. But you just sit there. That is not the purpose of sitting in the garden of knowledge. This is not a majlis tafakkur. It's a majlis tadhakkur. It is not a knowledge. It is not a session for you to sit there and be in a state of passive. Being passive. It's supposed for you to be spiritually and intellectually active. So this is the worst. You come in and just be there. All right, static. Physically, spiritually, everything static. The second extreme is those who come there and they're active, but they are not spiritually active. They're just asking. Sometimes to the point where they like to debate, question, ponder, probe. They just do everything just to what? Just to get into an engagement. This one compromises the ethics. The best, the middle way, the Prophet says, Khairul umuri awsatuha, the best are those who come, all right? And they are prepared to absorb. At the end of the day, you must remember, you are there to benefit from the teacher's knowledge. So you're taking in the knowledge. You're absorbing the knowledge, all right? At the same time, you have questions. Why? Because you don't understand. You need clarification so that you can act upon it. You buy a car, you look at the car, you basically know how the car works, all right? So you stage, you want to have a feel of it, try of it, and then you look at the functions, you look at it. Then afterwards, you're going to say, hey, how does this one work? After you've appreciated how this whole thing is set up, then you ask the questions. So the good student is the one that actually appreciates the conditions, the knowledge that's given to them, understand it. And then when there's gaps, then they ask. Those gaps cannot be manifested unless you start to think about it. All right. So the process is it calls for you to actually understand. Right? It's for you to understand. You need to do your part before you ask your teacher to play his part as well. And that is the adab actually. If you're going to ask a favor from someone, you must make sure that you have done enough to ensure that when you ask that favor from someone, that someone is not put at a discomfort in helping you out. You should make it easy for someone to help you, because after all, you are the one that's in need of it more than that person. All right? So do not ask me, all right? Allah the Exalted says, I will show you my signs, so do not be in a hurry. That's why in a haste. Hastiness shows a lack of contemplation. Hastiness shows that you are not calm. So all this being instead of calm. So do not ask me before the time is ripe. When is the time ripe? Like the process I've told you just now. When you have actually absorbed, you have actually absorbed, you have started to appreciate, you started to contemplate, then it's time, the time is ripe to ask. Okay. Be sure that you will not reach a station except by traveling towards it. All right. Do they not travel to the earth and sea? All right. So when you have reached that level, the next thing is to act upon it. All right. To act upon it. So now that you've got the answer to the question, now that you know it, please act upon it. That's why the Prophet says in a hadith, and this hadith, Imam Ghazali enshrined it in the opening chapter, in his introduction chapter of his another book called Muqaddim of Bidayatul Hidayah. In his Muqaddimah, in his opening preface, he says, he quote this hadith from the Prophet. All right. Man isdada ilma, lam yazdad huda, lam yazdad minallah illa bu'da. Man isdada ilma, whomsoever increases in knowledge, lam yazdad huda, but does not increase in guidance. What is the sign of increase in guidance? That you have knowledge and then you act upon it. And you have knowledge and then you become a better person ethically because of it. If you have these two things, it means that your knowledge has benefited you. But if you have increase in knowledge, but you start to be slovenly, you start to be lazy, you start to slacken in your good deeds, if you have knowledge, but then you have ill-mannered towards people, it means that the knowledge has yet to fulfill its utmost potential. All right. So there's a gauge. All right. Man izdada ilma lam yazdad huda. And the Prophet continued, lam yazdad minallahi illa bu'da. He does not increase anything but distance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You become more distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of that. We go into chapter 21. So there's 24 chapters. We are about there. It's just that 22 is actually a very pivotal chapter. We're going to talk about 22 after this. All right. So devotion. By Allah, my dear son, by Allah. Okay. By Allah, if you travel, you will see wonders at every stage. If you travel. So brother Erwan, travel. Travel to Gambia. All right. By Allah, if you travel, you will see wonders at every stage. What do you mean by traveling here? So traveling is by two. One is traveling physically. Traveling physically. So when you travel, Allah says in the Quran, Siru fil ardi. All right. Travel the earth. All right. No, one of my teachers, he has a travel agent in Malaysia. What's the name of his travel agent? It's the most simplest and straightforward and most blessed name. Siru fil ardi. His travel agent is called Siru fil ardi. Travel the earth. How straightforward can the travel agent's name be? Travel the earth. All right. Siru fil ardi. So why do you travel the earth? Physical travel. What does it do? All right. The purpose of this traveling is for you to be in awe of the wonders of this earth, the wonders of Allah's creation. It doesn't have to be overseas. It can be you after this, packing up your things and traveling through. Just walk. You know, you should make an effort to walk. If you can, if it is a walking distance, you walk. All right. And if you're going to walk longer, all right, then do so. Do not just be dependent on transportation. Try to walk. Just a brisk walk. I tell you, just a brisk walk through your neighborhood. All right. With the intention of what? With the intention of learning. So do this. These holidays, school holidays coming, right? Those of you who have children, everything, just go for a walk and set the intention. I intend to walk to benefit from the walking. Sometimes you just walk because you just walk random. All right. Now walk with the intention of benefiting from the walk. And I tell you, you will learn a lot of things. So first purpose of walking is to be in awe of the wonders. So that's why when people walk, a good place to walk is through nature. All right, they go hiking, they go trekking. That's good. All right, there's the way for you to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by looking at things that He created naturally. All right, there are some things that humankind create and Allah ordered it to happen, like machinery, technology, and all that. That's why it has its defects. But if you look, that's why Allah says in the Quran, all the things He mentions are very nature. أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ. Do you not see the she-camel, how it is created? وَإِلَى السَّمَاءِ كَيْفَ رُفِعَتْ. And the heavens, how it is raised. The skies, how it is raised. وَإِلَى الْجِبَالِ كَيْفَ نُصِبَتْ. Look at how the mountains become pivots on earth. وَإِلَى الْأَرْضِ. And look at the earth, how it is presented, is spread before you. It's talking about nature. So one of the ways to do spiritual cleansing and to create a formation of Allah Ta'ala is to appreciate nature. Look at nature. All right. unfolding before your very eyes. Look at it, contemplate it. Same process just now. Absorb, looking at it, your eyes absorb it, then you start to appreciate it, and then you start to ponder and you wonder, all right, who will have created something as perfect as this, but someone who is perfect himself, Allah Ta'ala. Be in awe. All right, so there is traveling, you see wonders. Secondly, you travel to see societies, to see people, to observe societies, to observe norms. All right, Allah says the purpose of creation, what? Lita'arafu is for you. I created you in tribes and groups. Why? Lita'arafu, to understand the diversity, the differences. Not for you, and how this is why human beings make a mistake. They travel, and this started from the colonial powers last time. All right, the colonial masters, they travel with the purpose of not to learn, they travel to dismantle. They travel to conquer. They travel to undermine other people's thinking cultures. All right, so when they come in, they start condescending. The purpose of you traveling is to look at others and to appreciate their culture, to appreciate their practices. It's not for you to go and decide that yours is superior than others, and therefore you deem that they are supposed to be disrespected, to be undermined, to be discriminated against. That's wrong, and that's how human beings got it wrong. The purpose of traveling, even I always criticize, I always remind my students, if you're going traveling, when you go on an overseas mission, if you're going on overseas integrated program or whatsoever, when you go traveling, when you see other people's cultures and society, it's not meant for you to superimpose your understanding upon theirs. Oh, look at them, look at it. So look at their houses, so unlike ours. That's problem. That's a very orientalist way of thinking, putting your superiority, your contextual superiority over that of others. So there was one time I put a particular student in place. I said to this student, we went traveling, and then he said we went traveling to a place in Southeast Asia, and then we went to a village where we taught English. So we taught the villagers English, these villagers, all right. And then after that session in the evening, the student, we had a reflection session, all right, with all the participants of the mission, all right. And then one of them actually says, I feel that I feel very motivated today. Oh, I say, why so? I feel motivated because I have actually taught the student how to speak English, and therefore I have saved his future. I felt that I've saved his future because he has not learned an English language. As though this child has no future if he doesn't learn English. So I said to the student, you know something? When you go home later, all right, when you go home later, this student, all these students that you just taught today, they have a land to their name. All they are going to inherit lands. They have a land to, means what? If their parents pass on, they will inherit the lands. So their future is rather secured. They have a land to their name. They can do whatever they want. If they want to sell the land, they'll be rich. If they don't want to, they work on the land. They have a land to pass down to their descendants thereafter. But you, my dear friend, are going back to a country where the emphasis is on paper qualifications. If you don't do well, if you don't strive where you come from for your examinations, your future is bleaker than the student whom you taught English just now. So when we travel, the purpose is not for us to superimpose. The purpose is not for you to, you can form opinions, you can form thoughts about certain conditions, but then that must be done with empathy, of understanding what were the conditions that gave birth to these realities before your eyes. That's why our scholars last time, they traveled as well. They traveled. Ibn Battuta, he traveled. He observed societies, all right, and then he wrote them down. He made observations of what were their traits, what was their poor traits, what was their traits that he felt was questionable, traits that he felt like, but he never at one point said to come to the point by, oh, mine is superior than theirs. No, it's just to understand. And then another book, groundbreaker, Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah. You can go to Waldra and get these books. All right, Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah, and this is a reference point for sociology texts. Sociologists will look at Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah, how he observed societies, how he observed power relationships, how he observed the interactions within community. This is a very important content and resource. So this is that. So when you travel, all right, physically, to look at societies, to observe people, to look at wonders of the earth, all right, it will actually create some degree of affirmation. Now, the next thing is that, what if I can't travel, sir? Say I'm on a tight budget, end of the year, even though people are traveling, I can't travel. If you can't travel, this one of my teachers says, if you can't travel by foot, if you can't travel by flight, if you can't travel by car, you travel intellectually. How do you travel intellectually? You read. You read. All right. So you either travel physically and read the writings of nature, or you travel intellectually by reading books. You know what's the problem of society today? We travel, but we are not reading. All right. We travel, but we are not reading. We are just capturing, but we are not appreciating. You know, it's quite a common sight to see when people travel with a tour guide. The tour guide is there explaining things and you are busy capturing photos. You don't see tourists taking down notes, do you? You don't see people like, whoa, they're saying something. No one takes down notes. People just, oh, all right. And then they just listen, but they are not actually processing it. All right. When you look at reality of society, you're supposed to appreciate those realities. And then the next thing you need to know, to understand is that when you travel, all right, you need to also understand that you need to travel intellectually to read. Set a target, because when you read, you are now you're exposing yourself. All right, you are exposing yourself to the study of other people's thoughts, opinions, and henceforth. All right. Right. Now, so what does this two kinds of traveling do? So read, right? Spend time. Have a target. This is now entering into December. We are in November now. Set a target. One book per month. All right, one book per month. All right, read one book per month. Based on what? Okay, what books do you read? All right, I would like to read Dear Beloved Son. All right, all right. What do you read? Read things. All right, I will suggest two kind of readings. All right, general. Read biographies. All right, read biographies. All right, read biographies. All right, of the Prophet. All right, of people whom you can learn from. Even biographies of evil people, so that you don't become evil. You know, in the Quran, there's biographies. In the Quran, there's two kinds of biographies. The biographies of people who have done good, and the people who have done extreme evil. That's why in the Quran, there's the story of Musa and the story of Fir'aun. So it's not wrong for you to take a book. So like, for example, one of my favorite biographies is Ian Kershaw's book on Adolf Hitler. I read about him to understand how evil can really change the trajectory of the world. All right. And then I start to make alignments. If I see evil manifesting itself, I can see that, oh, there's a pattern here. All right. Whichever time people come in, I can see evil. All right. So that. Now, another thing you can spend your traveling on is on your passion. So, for example, Brother Aaron is into heart. Brother Aaron is into I don't know, he does it with, what's the word he likes to use? Calligraphy. All right. So Brother was into calligraphy. He will find books. All right. Find books of calligraphy or on arts and then read on it. Why do I say read books on passion? All right. When you read books that you're passionate on topics you're passionate about, that will keep you going. Reading can be very boring, especially for those who are not seasoned readers. All right. It's going to be something that's very boring for you. But if you're reading something based on your passion, there's something. And then you keep reading it, reading, and you start to build on the repertoire. All right. So read. All right, read. And you're exploring, all right, especially if you're reading books of different contexts. So Brother Irwan reads a book on heart or calligraphy of someone from another part of the world, and how they understand calligraphy, on how they came about that path. He will appreciate more. Sometimes the reading on another content of another person on the same passion will give you an exploration into their background. So if Brother Irwan reads about a book on calligraphy from someone who does heart in China, he will understand more about China. Because the background always gives birth or gives forth to a reality of that person. Then you are traveling, right? You are traveling. All right. So when I'm reading, about Adolf Hitler, for example, I'm traveling to Germany in 1921. I'm traveling to Germany in 1940. I'm traveling through time to look at those realities. All right. So that's how you travel. Your mind travels, your intellect travels. Your intellect cannot be stagnating. Right? Your intellect cannot be stagnating. You know what's a stagnating intellect? When you start to play games. It's the same thing all the time. The routine is the same. Yeah, the enemies change, the monsters are bigger, it come as surprises, but your mind is not expanding as much as when you are reading. Now, if that kind of understanding. When you read books, when you watch movies, even you are going to watch movies that make you think as well. You don't watch brainless movies that just spew blood all over the screen. Okay. So devote. So if you travel, you will still wonder. So when you do these two things, what are the two things that comes from it? First, it affirms. Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad says in his Risalatul Mawana, Book of Assistance, he says that when you read a text, all right, when you read a text and then you affirm it by actually what? When you travel, whatever that is in the text and you travel and you see it, it will start to affirm each other. So if you read the Quran says this. All right. So the Quran says, "Afala yanzuruna ilal ibili kaifa khuliqat." Do you not see the camel, how it is created? Then you explore and look at the camel. You travel and look at the camel. Because Allah says, look at it, and you'll be in awe that it can travel long distances. All right. It can travel long distances without consuming water. You'll be in awe. So whatever the Quran says is manifested in reality. Then your faith becomes stronger. It becomes an affirmative process. So traveling is an affirmation of your faith, if the intention is right. Right? And the second part is when you travel and you see the unseen, when you start to discover, when you appreciate, all right, whether by the books or by the people or by the societies, you start to be more humble. You are humbled by the experience. Right? If you are from the first world, like we claim to be in Singapore, and you go to a third world country, and you see how, despite them being in third world, all right, they persevere. Despite how they are suffering, all right, despite their limitations technologically, they have made use of nature to an advantage that may be better than ours. You look at their life, they are stress-free. Look at their life, they are not impeded by us, like how we are challenged by many realities that we are facing today. Look at how they are, you become humble. So certainty and humility are the most important traits you develop from traveling, and these are the traits that the world is in most need of. You need certainty because you're always uncertain about yourself. You lack the confidence. All right, that's one of the challenges that people face today is lacking of self-esteem, anxiety, depression. Why? One of the reasons is because of lack of certainty. How do you find certainty? Travel. Right? You want to find certainty? You're anxious? Travel. All right, that's why one of the ways to treat people sometimes, they are feeling distressed. What do you do? What do you tell them? Off the computer, close your books, let's go for a walk. All right, you go for a walk. All right, when you walk, actually, all right, it actually gives you certainty. All right, it has the effect of certainty. Okay, and then humility as well. So certainty and humility. And certainty and humility are very complementing traits. If you have certainty, in too much of certainty in abundance, you will lead on to arrogance because you're so certain. You start to be arrogant. So it needs to be complemented by humility. So traveling gives you these two realities. Wonderful. You get certainty and you get humility. You become better after traveling. All right? You become better after traveling. Now, what does he say after this? He says, devote your soul. For the most important thing in this matter is devotion of the soul. Now the soul is being devoted. All right. So what do you mean by actually devoting your soul? All right. He's trying to tell you, work on your soul. All right. Work on your soul. Enrich your soul. Okay. Build on the quality of your soul. Because the soul, why? The Prophet says, فَإِذَا صَلَحَتْ صَلَحَ سَائِرَ الْجَسَدِ. For if the soul is good, it will bring about goodness in the whole body. So devote your soul. And if the soul is corroded, if the soul is corrupted, then the whole being becomes corrupted. So work towards the soul. And I said this before. When Fir'aun, when Prophet Musa and Prophet Harun was sent to Fir'aun, the most evil of creations. Why was he the most evil? Because of the fact that he proclaimed to be God. All right. What was the message Allah gave to Musa and Fir'aun? Musa and Harun, he says, "Idhaba ila Fir'aun innahu tagha." Go to Fir'aun, for he has created transgression. But what did Allah says? فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. If you go to Fir'aun, the most evil of person, فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. Speak unto him قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. All right? In a manner most gentle, layyinan, in a manner most gentle. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. For by doing so, you will create a reminder in him and he will be in fear. Look at this. Being gentle can create awareness and it can create fear. What is the point of this ayat from the Quran, Surah Taha, ayat 44, is that it is not the volume per se, it is not the method per se, but it is about the messaging. If you are gentle, the message, if it's potent, it will still has its more maximum effect. All right, it's about that. So it's about working on the soul. If the words come from the soul, it will hit the soul. So devote yourself to your soul. All right, devote your soul. Work on the soul. All of us need to work on our soul. We're working on so many things. Working on our diet, Ustaz. I'm working on my workout, Ustaz. We are working on so many things. Now work on the soul. Now, how do you work on your soul? This is the important thing. All right. Firstly, working on your soul calls for you to work on knowledge. So seek knowledge. The soul is nourished by knowledge. Knowledge is learned from a teacher. Knowledge is learned by reading. So nourish your soul. So now you have this nourishment. You're studying, you're reading, you're learning something today. Now find a nourishment. Find a book to read and read and read and read. All right. Even Sheikh Ahmad Sa'an is not sharing in his Telegram. All right. The books I'm reading. Right? The books I'm reading. Okay. It's a subtle message. It's trying to tell the students, telling the people who are following on Telegram, I'm reading. Why aren't you? I'm reading. Why aren't you? Right. Second, all right, is to act upon it by having acts of devotion. Devote your soul means that you also become someone who worships earnestly, zealously, right? That you like to do worship. You enjoy worship. It's not doing it in terms of the maximum, in terms of quantity, but the quality. That you just enjoy going to do your prayers. Because you're responding to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you look forward to Ramadan. When you travel for your Hajj or your Umrah, is something that you take in your heart. And this is not, it doesn't have to be told to the world. It doesn't have to be told on IG. It's just that you're feeling good. When you do act of worship, you just feeling good. You don't have to put it on IG. I feel good about doing my salat today. No, it's just the feeling inside. I like to, right? When I go for my salat, I feel comfortable. That's why the Prophet, when he has a problem, when he's distressed or something, he takes wudu and he prays. And he says it's a calmness to my eyes. It's a calming effect. All right, acts of devotion. And then third is to ensure that you also commit yourself to service, to khidmah. All right. So you have knowledge, you act, and then you have acts of devotion. All right. And then in addition, also you have service. All right. So you have service. So what do you mean? Oh, sorry. Third one is remembrance. So you have knowledge, you have acts of devotion, remembrance. Spend, Allah says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udhkurullaha dhikran kathira. Remember Allah in abundance. That is working on your soul. Do zikrullah in your heart. Do salutations to the Prophet in your heart. That will actually make your heart more tender. All right. It makes it most fertile to what Allah's going to the guidance Allah's going to give to you. All right. Allah's words, Allah's guidance is like the seeds. But seeds, when they fall off a hard ground, they will bounce off it. Seeds, when they fall into land which is infertile, it will just be there, but it will not have any effect. But seeds, if they fall onto a most fertile soil, it will grow. How do you make a soil fertile? You recite zikrullah. You recite the Quran. You recite dhikr. You do istighfar. You do salutations. All right. When you do all these things, the more you do it, the more you water, the more the heart becomes fertile. All right. Fourthly, to be of service. To make your heart tender, be of service. Scholars says, they always say, Ustaz, I have a heart that I don't feel, I find it hard to have khushu in salat. I find it hard to concentrate in salat. I find it hard to have, I start to get angry easily. How do you appreciate that? You actually have a dedication to service. Every day, you find a way to reach out to people. Some scholars say it can be as simple a job as what? As going to a hospital. When you go to the hospital, these are people that are in a state that we don't want to be in. Let's be frank about it. They're in a state where they're receiving treatment, they're unwell, they're sick. All right. When you see them, you will have an appreciation of your health. That's one of the benefits of visiting the sick. One is to pray from them. One is to learn from them. All right. So live a life of devotion. All right. When you live a little bit, when you help out other people, you become aware of their realities. You become thankful. Your heart becomes tender. So if we are serious about the issue in Gaza for that matter, what can we do for Gaza? Yes, we can make dua for them. Secondly, what can we do for them? We can send humanitarian aid to them. But what's the third thing you can do? You start helping out here. It's easy for you to see back and say, let's do something about it. But there are problems in the society today. The illiterate, the religiously illiterate, the morally illiterate, the intellectually illiterate. Why are we not doing anything here? Well, we are saying from afar, do something over there when there's something to be done here. This is a place where we start actually showing our solidarity for the people there by helping out the people here. The people there are being bombarded, but their souls are alive. Their faith is strong. We have another opposite problem here where people are physically fine, but their souls are in trouble. Their intellect is in trouble. Their moral compass is all over the place. There is work to do here. As much as there is work that has to be done there, there is work that we need to do here. And this is when our service comes in. We help the needy. We help the illiterate. We enlighten those who are religiously illiterate, those who can't recite the Quran. Teach them, guide them, help them. Those who don't know the religion, show them. Those who need help materially, provide for them. All these things will have an effect on your soul. You also becomes tender. The Prophet says in his dua, oh Allah, all right, whomsoever is tender towards those under their care, be tender towards them. So be tender towards those around us. Provide for them, Allah provide for us. That's how you devote your soul. And then fifth, all right, is to reflect. All right, is to reflect and reform. It is to reflect and reform. Okay, reflect. Always do reflection. Now is a time today we have social media. We are looking outwards a lot. We are looking at this, looking. Take a break from all that and look inwards to ourselves. Because the measure in the Quran, there's a specific ayah to ask us to look inwardly. What does it say? وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. In yourself, do you not see? Look at yourself. Reflect on yourself. Look at your creation, your realities, and reflect upon it. Think how you can do better. Think how the soul can do better. So these are 5 ways to devote your soul. Knowledge. Second, acts of devotion. Third is remembrance. Fourth is service. Fifth is reflection and reform. All right. Do this consistently. All right. Then you see how your heart, your soul will change. Dhunnun al-Misri. All right. Rahimahullah ta'ala said to one of his disciples, look at this one. If you do not have the power to devote your soul, if you don't have the power, do you have the willpower to do the 5 things just now? You have no power to seek knowledge seriously. If you have no power to act upon your knowledge, you have no power to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have no power to be of service, you have no willpower to reflect and reform, he says, if you have the power to do so, come to me. Only those who have those 5 things, you work to it, you come to me. I will help you enhance it. I can give you advice to enhance it. The 5 things. And if not, all right, if you cannot do that, if you have not reached the stage of the five things I said just now, do not busy yourself in the idle practices of the Sufis. Do not busy yourself in the idle practices of the Sufis. Now, who is Dhunnun al-Misri? He is a Sufi. Who is the writer of this book? Imam al-Ghazali, who is a Sufi. Sheikh Hamzah Yusuf used to say, the Sufis are the greatest critic of Sufis. The greatest critic of Sufis are Sufis. Who are Sufis? Let's recall Sufis. All right, Sufis technically is supposed to refer to people who are striving to cleanse their hearts. They are called Sufis. People who are struggling, working hard to clean their hearts by acts of devotion. So Sufis actually are those people who fulfill these 5 things. If you work towards these 5 things, devote your soul, then you become Sufis. Because Sufis are people who are working on their souls. So the 5 things I said just now: knowledge, acts of devotion, remembrance, servitude, and reflection and reform are the traits of excellent Sufis. So if you do these 5 things, you are Sufi. What does Sufi mean literally? It means the Sufi means, if you take the Malay word, is a way suci, cleanse. So these are Sufis. But why is Zunnun talking about this? Why is Shaykh Zunnun, Imam Zunnun al-Misri, he says, do not be yourself the idle practice of the Sufis. What do you mean by idle practices? So he's trying to say that Sufis are serious about soul, about devotion to the soul. So who are the idle Sufis? Those who do the opposite. People who claim to be Sufis for the identity, for the image, looking like a Sufi. Imam Ghazali is very critical of people walking about looking like one when they are not working towards being one. What they like to go around, oh, I'm of this tariqah, I'm this of this tariqah. This is my mashayikh. They like to go around. All right, reflect, like looking like a Sufi, acting like a Sufi. But if you don't see them attending class, gardens of knowledge, you don't see them you don't see them committing to service, you don't see them that devotion of them. So looking more towards accessorizing their image to look like a Sufi instead of accessorizing their hearts to be the ultimate Sufi. So he says, don't be into this. Right? Don't be into this. It's like a sellout thing. It's like a sellout thing. Sufis don't want to like to proclaim to be a Sufi. Sufi don't proclaim to be a Sufi. Right? They don't sell themselves out to show who they are. They are working more towards being better people inwardly. All right? So, so this is one, and this is a sickness that's existing till this very day. All right, till this very day, we see people going around being proud. Oh, I'm of this story. I'm. It's not something to be proud about. If you are going to be a Sufi, the most important trait is humility. All right, you don't want to go around and say, mashallah, I'm this. No. You're just going to be just quiet about it. If someone asks you, may I know, do you have a sheikh? Yes, I have a sheikh. But you don't go around saying that I. All right, this is my sheikh. Your sheikh, well, he has problems. All right, this is my zikr. You might have a set of zikr, but if you don't act upon it, the zikr just becomes something that is a dead soul. It's a dead body. What gives life to a dead body? Like I said, is the remembrance. What kind of remembrance? Genuine remembrance, not a superficial one. So here, Imam Zunnun al-Misri is criticizing superficial Sufis that care only to look like one or act like one before people, but on left to their own tools, all right, they will just be someone who will not uphold what they claim to do in the open. So even though you don't claim to be a Sufi, you don't want to be a Sufi, 5 things there. Right? If you do these 5 things, you are Sufi, you're having to tell the world about it. If the world even doesn't recognize you. You look at Brother Irwan, when I saw Brother Irwan for the first time, nothing Sufi about him. Nothing. See, Brother Irwan, all right? He can't be Sufi. But now when I see him, I know him long enough, he is the most sophisticated person I've seen. All right. So Sufi is not in the form merely. Yes, you can. Sometimes you wear some sunnah attire, you look Sufi. But do not just be, oh, I want to look Sufi. You have to be Sufi. All right. If you be Sufi, you're going to be Sufi. If you look Sufi, but you're not there, you're not. I don't have to tell the world I support Arsenal. All right. But if you take my heart out, it has Arsenal logo on it. But people who wear the Arsenal jersey need not be Arsenal supporters. They need not be. All right. They need not be. Okay. If that helps you understand. Okay. Now, sneak preview to next week. Next week is going to be good because it's going to be, you're going to look at the 22nd Council, and inside the 22nd Council, you will see the brilliance. In fact, you have seen a lot of Imam Ghazali's brilliant thus far. The brilliance of Imam al-Ghazali, because he's going to unpack realities. When he wrote this book, all right, when he wrote this, it was years ago, hundreds years, it was thousands years, it was thousands of years ago. But those realities that he picked out, all right, with so much detail, is up till this very day something that is manifested. And if we act upon it, we will be safe from the tribulations of these times. All right, so next week, we're going to look at the concept of da'wah. All right, he's going to advise us on 8 things. I'm hoping next week I can cover, all right, I can cover most parts of this. So we can finish this, all right, this topic. All right, so next week is a not to be missed one because it is a very insightful advice given by Imam Al-Ghazali, all right, in how we navigate the realities of this time. In fact, 22nd Council easily can qualify as a workshop. 22nd Council can easily qualify as a workshop, all right, to deal with the tribulations of the 21st century. Allahu a'lam bissawab. Any question? No questions? Ready to travel? All right. Yeah, it's time ready to travel the halls. All right. Ready to travel spiritually and intellectually as well. Right. So this is a good thing. So since you're entering into the November, December holidays, so those of us who are traveling, now take this tip from Imam Ghazali. All right. You travel, yes, you travel, but you also travel with your soul and intellect. Your body can enjoy the traveling, but make sure that your soul and intellect travels with you as well. So you come back from traveling, the travel becomes a classroom and you become a better student of life. All right. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ustaz.
Thank you.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Ustaz.
Thank you.